Before churches were built, before mosques filled the cities, before the Bible or the Qur'an ever arrived, Africa already had gods. They weren't written in books. They were remembered in songs carved into stone, passed down in whispers by the fireside. These gods lived in rivers, mountains, forests, and stars. They shaped the rain, the harvest, the birth of children, and the rise of kings. But over time, many of their names were forgotten. Their temples crumbled, their stories vanished. Christianity and Islam spread far and wide, and the old gods slowly faded from memory. Today we're going back to the beginning, to a time when Africa's spiritual world was alive with thunder, fire, ancestors, and gods. This is the story of Africa before Christianity and Islam, the lost gods of Africa. Now let's begin. Long before European missionaries or Arab traders arrived, African people had deep spiritual beliefs. Many people think Africa was a continent waiting to be saved. But the truth is, African societies already had their own systems, rich, complex, and full of meaning. These religions were not primitive. They were based on thousands of years of observation, ritual, and experience. In fact, African traditional religions are some of the oldest in the world. Each tribe, kingdom, or ethnic group had its own gods and spirits. Some gods controlled the weather, others watched over health, love, war, or birth. Some were gentle, others were fierce. In most African cultures, there was not just one god. There were many, and behind all these smaller gods, many believed in one great creator, an all-powerful being who made everything, but stayed distant from everyday life. So the people didn't just worship the creator directly. They worked through spirits, ancestors, and nature. In African traditional religion, the ancestors are never truly gone. Even after death, they remain part of the family. They watch, guide, protect, and sometimes punish. People poured libations, pouring out drinks to honor them. They offered food. They asked for blessings before planting crops or starting a journey. Ignoring your ancestors could bring bad luck. Honoring them brought peace and success. Spirits also played a big role. They could live in rivers, trees, animals, or even shadows. Some were friendly, others were dangerous. Every village had people who could communicate with the spirits, healers, priests, or diviners. They used rituals, dances, symbols, and even trance to reach the spiritual world. This deep connection with nature, ancestors, and spirits was the heart of African life before foreign religions arrived. Let's begin our journey with West Africa, a region rich with kingdoms and powerful gods. In the Yoruba religion of Nigeria, there is a supreme creator called Olodumare, but most worship is directed towards smaller gods called Orishas. Each Orisha controls a part of life. For example, Shango is the god of thunder, lightning, and power. He was once a king and is known for his fiery temper. Oshun is the goddess of love, beauty, and fresh water. People call on her for fertility, healing, and happiness. Ogun is the god of iron and war, worshipped by hunters, blacksmiths, and warriors. These gods are still remembered today, not just in Africa, but in the Americas too. When enslaved Africans were taken to Brazil, Cuba, and Haiti, they carried their gods with them. That's why you'll find similar gods in Santería, Candomblé, and Vodou, all rooted in African religion. In Central Africa, especially among the Bantu-speaking people, religion was centered on harmony and balance. One of the most important gods was Nzambi Mpungu, the supreme god among the Bakongo people. He created the world and the spirits, but left humans to manage their own affairs. The people believed in Nkisi, sacred objects filled with spiritual power. These could be used to heal, to protect, or to punish wrongdoing. Priests and spiritual leaders, known as Ngangas, would awaken these powers through ritual. They wore feathers, bones, and beads, symbols of their connection to the invisible world. These beliefs were not just spiritual, they were political too. Kings ruled with spiritual authority, claiming power from the gods and ancestors. Now let's travel to the northeast, to ancient Egypt and Nubia. We all know Egypt for pyramids and pharaohs, but Egypt was also deeply religious. Every part of life was tied to the gods. Ra was the sun god, riding across the sky every day. Osiris ruled the afterlife and resurrection. Isis, his wife, was the goddess of motherhood and magic. Anubis watched over funerals and guided souls to the next world. These gods weren't just worshipped, they were part of daily life. Each town had a local god. Temples were centers of education, law, and health. And down the Nile in ancient Nubia, many of the same gods were worshipped, with their own local names and stories. The Nubians built great pyramids and temples, showing their spiritual power and deep connection to the divine. In East Africa, many ethnic groups believed in one high god above all, powerful but distant. Among the Kikuyu people of Kenya, the creator is called Nai, who lives on Mount Kenya, a sacred mountain. He was believed to bring rain, fertility, and life. Nai was not worshipped daily. Instead, people called on him in times of great need, drought, war, or sickness. The rest of the time, they honored the spirits and ancestors who stood between humans and Ngai. In Ethiopia, long before Christianity, the people worshipped Wak, a sky god. This belief still survives today among the Oromo people. So while the gods were many in other parts of Africa, some groups focused on one supreme being and kept their spiritual connection through nature and tradition. Everything began to change around the 7th century. In North Africa, Islam spread rapidly after the Arab conquests. Many African communities, especially along trade routes, converted to Islam. New mosques replaced old shrines. The old gods were declared false. Later, Christianity arrived through missionaries and European colonizers. In Ethiopia, it took root early, by the 4th century. But in most of sub-Saharan Africa, Christianity expanded during the 1800s and 1900s. With these new religions came new rules, new scriptures, and new beliefs. In many places, traditional gods were erased, labeled as evil, pagan, or uncivilized. Sacred drums were silenced. Ritual dances were banned. Priests and diviners were cast out or forced underground. But even as the old ways were pushed aside, they never fully disappeared. Today, you can still find traces of Africa's old gods. In songs, in dances, in the names of towns and rivers, even in dreams passed down from grandparents to grandchildren. Many Africans still practice traditional religion, either fully or alongside Islam and Christianity. And across the Atlantic, in places like Haiti, Cuba, and Brazil, African gods still live on through Vodou, Santería, and Candomblé. These religions survived slavery, colonialism, and oppression, proof of their strength and spiritual power. So why does this matter today? Because these gods are part of Africa's story. They're not just myths, they represent memory, culture, identity, and resilience. Long before the Bible or the Qur'an, there was Ogun, there was Ra, there was Oshun, there was Nzambi, there was the spirit of the ancestors whispering in the wind. Remembering the lost gods of Africa is not about going backward. It's about honoring the roots and understanding the full story of who we are. Africa's spiritual history didn't begin with Christianity or Islam. It began with the land, the sky, the rivers, with voices that rose in prayer long before any book was written. So as we move forward, let's not forget what came before. Because sometimes the future begins by remembering the past. Thank you for watching. If you learned something new today, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories from history and culture. Stay blessed and see you in the next video.